Now, one of the great things about Knack is that it's an all-in-one solution that includes the capability to build connections and also automate data between Knack and hundreds of other core applications and services that you use every day. It's kind of like having Zapier-like functionality directly in Knack. Let's use the built-in Flows tool. To access the Flows tool, over on the left-hand side, let's click on Flows. Let's click on Create Flow from Scratch. This drops us into a new flow. And first, we need to add a trigger. This is what's going to kick off this flow. Let's click here. First, we need to define where the data is coming from. I want to take data from Knack and bring it over to Google Sheets for our finance team. I'll click on this dropdown, and here I can select the source of the data. Right up on top, I have Knack. I'll select this, but keep in mind, you have many other options where you can retrieve data from. I'll select this. Next, I need to choose an event to trigger your flow. Every time we add a new invoice, I want to add it to the Google Sheet. So over here, I'll click on this dropdown, and there's an option for record created. When we create a new invoice, that's also creating a record. You also have other options as well. Let's select this one. Next, I need to select my Knack account. I'll click on this dropdown, and let's go with the second Kevin Cookie Company invoice system. I'll select this. Next, we can also select the tables that we would like to use. I want to add invoice data to the Google Sheet. And right up here, I have the invoices table. I'll select this option, and down below, let's click on Continue. Next, we need to define what happens with the data when a new invoice is added. Right here, we could add the action. Let's click on this. We can now define the action. Right up on top, first we have to indicate where we would like to transfer this data to. And when I click on this dropdown, here too, we have many different options, and this list keeps going. It's extremely extensive. I'd like to add it to Google Sheets. So here, I can simply type in Google and then Sheets, and there it found Google Sheets. That's a very quick way to get to the app that you would like. I'll select this option. Next, we need to select the action that we would like to perform. So we have the Google Sheet, and what do I want to do with it? Well, I'd like to add a new row with the invoice details, but here too, you have lots of different options. Let's select this first one to create, update a row. Lastly, you'll also need to connect to your Google account. Over here, I'll click on this dropdown, and here, let's add a linked account. I'll stick with the default name for this connection and then click on Continue. On this screen, I need to enter in some additional parameters. Down below, I can select the spreadsheet that I would like to write this data to. When I click on this, I see all the different spreadsheets in my Google Sheets account. Down at the very bottom, there's a spreadsheet called the Invoice Tracker Finance Team. That's what I need to add it to, so I'll select this. Now that I've selected a spreadsheet, down at the very bottom, I can also select the sheet. And here, I'll select sheet 1, and then in the bottom right, let's click on Continue. Right up above, let's click on Continue. This opens up a screen where I can map all the different fields from my invoices table to the different columns within the spreadsheet. Let's have a quick look at the spreadsheet before I fill this out. I'm in Google Sheets, and up on top, you can see that I'm in the Invoice Tracker Finance Team spreadsheet, and down at the very bottom, I'm currently in sheet 1. The finance team has requested that every single time we generate a new invoice, that I should add the invoice number to column A, the due date to column B, and the amount due to column C. Once I add that information, they'll add in the expense, and then they'll automatically calculate the total profit. Let's now work on getting this information populated into this spreadsheet. Back within Knack, first, I need to specify what information I would like to place into column A, or the first column. I'll click on this text field, and down below, I can see Knack record created. I'll click on this, and here I see all the different table fields from the invoices table. First, I want to bring in the invoice number. I'll select this. Then I'll click into column B, and let's click on this again. And here I'd like to bring in the due date. And lastly, I also wanted to bring in the amount due. I'll click on this, and right there I see the amount due. And I don't need to bring in any other information. That's all the finance team needs. In the bottom right, let's click on Save. Now that we've created this flow, in the top right, let's click on this button that says Start. And look at that, the flow is now on. Let's close out of this. Let's now test this out by adding a new invoice. Over on the left-hand side, let's click on Records. Then let's make sure that we're in the Invoices table. And up on top, let's click on Add Record. This opens up the dialog to add a new record. And I've opened up Knack side by side with Google Sheets so we can see this in action. Right up on top, I'll select a due date. Let's go with the 31st. Then I could enter an amount due. They ordered a real lot of cookies. And last, I could select the customer. Let's go with Quick Bite. And then down in the bottom right-hand corner, let's click on Submit. It's now added the record into Knack, and over on the right-hand side, look at that. The data flows through almost instantaneously. Now that we have this data in Google Sheets, the finance team can come in and they could do some quick analysis or ad hoc calculations or even more complex financial modeling functions. Over on the left-hand side, let's click back into Flows. Within Flows, up on the top tabs, let's click on the one titled History. Within History, I can see a log or a record showing me every single time this flow runs. When we added that new invoice, that triggered the flow. So over here, I can see that Knack sent data to Google Sheets and it inserted a new row. One of the neat things, I could also click on this text and I could check exactly what Knack sent to Google Sheets. Here I see all those details, the invoice number, the due date, the amount due. If I close out of this, I could also see the exact information that it added to the Google Sheet. I'll click on this, and here I can see what it added to column A. It added the invoice number. Here's column B. It added the due date, and here in column C, it added the amount due. I have a record now of all of the data that went from one app to the other. We looked at how Knack integrates with Google Sheets. You can also connect to financial systems like QuickBooks, messaging tools like Twilio, file sharing like Dropbox, or even popular databases like MySQL and PostgreSQL. Basically, you can tie Knack into whatever systems you're already using without needing custom code.